Is it going?
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. All right. So yeah, I'm Katrina Menard. I am a collection manager at University of Connecticut, and this is kind of building on some stuff that I've been working on for I think almost 7 years now at this point. It's a little bit of an extension of stuff that I started when I was a grad student at Texas A&M. Um, and for some reason, I can't get away from Texas. Um, this was a trip that I actually just got back from last week, so I apologize now that it's a little bit I'm still kind of wrapping my head around some of the stuff that I observed. And this is an unusual trip in that I mainly focused on behavior stuff, which was not my tool set, but we'll see how it went. Or you'll see how it went. Just for a little bit of background, this is probably it was probably my sixth trip to the Davis Mountains, which, if you're not aware of where that is, it's on the southwestern part of Texas. I'm not sure if you could see my mouse or not. Yes, okay. So, it's this mountain range right here, which is labeled DMP. What's interesting about these mountains is it has all these different floristic elements that combine into this one region. So the Chihuahuan elements, Sierra Madre, Occidental elements. So a lot of these Mexican elements, as well as again some of this Colorado plateau. And so you get this real weird overlap of different faunistic and plant groups. And so if you look here on the left, there's my car from last week. There's Sawtooth Mountain. Again, it's majestic, but it's also very hot. It's Texas. Um, this last trip, again, I was trying to look at behavior stuff because despite as many trips as I've been there and the fact that I have a list of all the plants that are supposed to be there, it wasn't until last October that I found the agave. Whoops, I don't know what's up with this. Um, there were two plants that were up in the northeast of the property, which I just never walked on that trail. And it was a record that it was there, but it was actually a colleague, Jason Botts, who found it. And he's like, there's some agaves up there with bugs on them. And I was like, oh, really? Okay, cool. So I went over there and found agave haberdiana. I don't think I could say that right. Um, and then on top of it, there are some bugs. And so the following spring, um, I thought I would actually try and do a little bit more with them because agavicorus, agaveocorus, which is a creditarsign, was one that I worked with Tom Henry on several years ago, 2020, to describe several new genera. And one of the characteristics of this group is the fact that they feed on agaves. Another interesting thing about them is the fact that they have these really weird genitalia. So here on the right are images of some of the different genera in this group. These are the females. So if you look here in the vestibulum, which is where mating occurs, there's all kinds of spines. Like there's this one that's like a bear trap. Same here. And they also have this weird lever. So the sclerotized structure that extends to the side, where if you actually manipulate it, it opens and closes the gate to the vestibulum. So there's something weird going on. Also, the males have this usually a spine on the left-hand side that holds their perimere in position, which is sort of like what I would call kind of like a can opener, because when it disengages from this, it kind of swings forward and it's used by, we hypothesize, um, to physically press into that lever on the female and pop open the vestibulum for mating. Um, I had this hypothesis, and so I sent them to a couple specimens to Nick Tatarnik in Western Australia, who works on sexual selection stuff. And he also has access to a CT scanner to kind of see what's going on the inside, which is this kind of cryptic picture on the right. So on the left, you can kind of see, here's the perimere pressing into the abdomen. And if you look at the physical abdomen, it looks like it's kind of bent in half. And here's the male. It's kind of cryptic, but you could see the left perimere actually physically pressing into the side of the female on that lever structure as the aedagus, aedagus actually enters into the vestibulum. So there's the male actually mating, but that's the perimere pressing in to kind of open it up. if you want to see more of the CT scans, we're still trying to figure it out. That's more of Nick's thing than mine. But again, so I send him these bugs, and I've also been talking with Dr. Michael Schwartz about the system, especially the female genitalia. But it's really hard to understand what's going on when they're dead. So Nick came up to me, and he didn't come up to me, but he reached out to me and said, hey, can you get some evidence about what actually is happening so we can verify whether there's some sexual selection going on here, or maybe some kind of sexual antagonism. So that was the main point of this trip. Kind of backstepping a little bit, this whole can opening system or lever system is present in several different groups in the Southwest. One of the most widely distributed members of this group, at least in North America, is Haltocottoma. So they have the same kind of lever system with the males, and then the females have, again, a very modified small lever that the male pushes into, but it also has that, again, kind of bear trappy vestibulum. So it seemed like it was at least a good comparable group to kind of see what's going on. As a representative, unlike Agavochorus, which was harder to get. So, whoops, Yucca is the main host for these guys. They're smaller, and at least the good thing about them at the time when I started looking into this was the fact that Agavochorus, which is on agaves, is mainly, as you can see on the left in the orange area, mainly in the Southwest. Actually, most of the diversity is in Mexico. And so being someone at the time who started this project in Oklahoma, it was a little bit easier to get to agaves than it was where I am now, Connecticut. But at least with Yucca's much more dispersed across North America. Haltocottoma is a lot more available. And so I figured, okay, well, if we're going to kind of investigate the system, let's look at Haltocottoma too. And so when I went to Texas this last trip, I kind of had two hypotheses in my head. One was I figured Agavochorus should, if I put it in a container with a male and some females, they should relatively quickly mate because space is limited. I figured for them, because agaves are so, randomly dispersed in the West, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. If you actually put them in the same vicinity, theoretically, I figured they would probably quickly mate because they're not traveling as far. You're putting them in a situation where they would encounter each other more. So that was my hypothesis. For Haltocottoma as a comparative group, at least Valida, which is the most common one you see everywhere on yuccas, they tend to be really high densities to the point where it almost looks like the poor yucca is going to die. It's usually multi-generational, males, females, nymphs, all around at the same time. And so because they're at a high density, I figured as a hypothesis, females should be pickier about who they mate with because they have tons of choices. So I kind of came into this trip thinking that was what was going to happen. Yeah, not so much. Okay, so this is Agavochorus. And just in the video on the left, you can see there is some higher density, but for the most part, they kind of just come up, look at each other and walk away. So you can see them kind of antenating each other, investigating each other, but really not a lot going on. And there are nymphs at the same time. And then you can see up here, there was another one kind of antenating another one, and then it got chased off. So there's a lot of gesturing and stuff, but nothing really crazy or mating going on. Here on the top, you usually find like one or two males at the tips of each frond. I don't know what you would call these. So you'll get a male sitting at the top guarding it. And then, for example, here you'd see him chasing another male off. And so I collected the ones at the tops and verified they were males, and usually find the females and the nymphs farther down. And disproving my hypothesis, even when I played them romantic music, and I thought about lighting a few candles in the distance, when I put them in a vial, they didn't do anything at all. Nothing, no mating, nada. And I tried with 3 different generations. I don't know. I don't have the touch. Okay, see if I could switch the next slide. So I tried for 3 days. I stuck them in tubes. I actually sat there at the agave for at least like 2 hours. I cut my thumb pretty nasty. So you see these thorns here. They ripped up my thumb when I was trying to grab. Whoops, sorry. Excuse me, scoot forward. No mating. Ironically, when I was doing some dissections today to kind of, look again at the genitalia, I found evidence of sperm and the spermatotheca. So they did mate at some point, but not for me. Sorry, I don't have the touch. I should have played, I don't know, better music. Another agaveocaris that I found was on this Lechugia, which has never been recorded having this genus on it, which is interesting. Whoops, God, I don't know why it keeps doing that. And I found this last year actually with Michael when we went to the mountains in May. This is at the Chihuahua Nature Center, which is in a different, it's in Davis County, but in the Chihuahua Desert section. And then I also found some more when I was driving back to El Paso, feeding on this. And these guys have, again, similar behavior that you'll maybe find 1 or 2 per frond, but you don't really see them in high densities. I took populations from both this plant and then the one off the scenic overlook, and of course, no mating. I don't get it. So again, Agaveocaris 1 and Agaveocaris 2 both withheld. So which brings me to Haltocotoma. This yucca here, which is right next to the grocery store. We saw it before too when Michael came with me. It's packed with Haltocotoma. I mean, you could see here, whoops, it's all over the plant, multi-generations. You can see the poor yucca is just almost yellow. But even on the plant itself, you could see some of the 2 bugs actually kind of dancing with each other. If you look at it there, there's some nymphs and there's some females. So there are some males that actually, and that I think it's a male chasing a female. Or no, sorry, female chasing a male. So there are some antagonistic behavior. And then they're kind of, staring at each other. Yeah. So the ironic thing is to completely disprove my hypothesis, within half an hour of me putting them in a falcon tube, they mated. So if you look here on the left, I want you to watch this little guy right here where my cursor is. So this is a falcon tube with just a wet paper towel to keep them from drying out. So you just got to keep an eye out on it. So he's actually in front of the female. Look at that, blitzer. And there's the male actually mating with a female right there. And the female's trying to fight him off. Sorry, not the greatest video. This next video is actually of a female headbutting this male off, and she actually pushes him all the way to the top of the falcon tube. So there is some evidence that females at least will fight off males. I don't know if it's whether they're mated or they just are annoyed, but yeah, she essentially shoved them all the way to the top of the falcon tube. So, and then here on the right is another example of headbutting, where you'll get a female, there's a male. The female will actually like shove off the male and push him off and get him away. Here's another female helping to kind of get him out of the picture. So there's some behavior going on there. At least not quickly mating, which is what I kind of thought would, sorry. All right. And then I tried one other Haltocotoma species. According to Tom Henry, different yuccas have different species. So I'm not sure. I think the other one was Valida. I don't know what this one is. I got to go take it over to him, the ID. But this yucca is definitely different. It's a little bit thinner. The males, again, you'll see them sitting on 1 or 2 fronds on the end. And they'll chase other males that get on the edge off. So here's 2 males kind of fighting each other off. but low densities. You could tell I don't really see any other nymphs. I don't see any other, not the same density as the last group of Haltocatoma. And that's the agave on the right. So you can see it's more like prostrate, and a lot thinner needle or leaves. So kind of where this goes from here. Well, Haltocatoma is really, compared to other taxa in this group, it's fairly well distributed. Well, what we conceive of Haltocatoma valida right now. So it's maybe not so limited on resources because there's so much of what it has as a food source. So maybe there isn't that same pressure for to, I guess, or the males have more pressure to be promiscuous. Mainly because like females can quickly leave and find a new host. Maybe there isn't that same pressure that, you know, the females have to fight back, or I don't know. So, but the other Haltocatoma is also in a wildly dispersed yucca, but it's not a very high density on the plants. The males tend to guard one or two fronds, which is different. Again, it's kind of not what I'd expect. I would have thought that they would have mated pretty quickly too, because I put them in a falcon tube and they also didn't mate. It's only valida when they were in a falcon tube that really kind of took advantage of the situation, which is weird. For Gaviacaris, so this species, actually looking with our key that we did, it's actually the first record of this bug in Texas, actually United States. These one agaves, it's kind of a crappy picture, but there's only 2 plants in this entire area. The closest agave is maybe 10 miles away. So they're really, really spotty. So maybe the fact that there's only a limited resource maybe is putting a lot of special, pressure on them. They did have multi-generations living at the same time, but much lower numbers. Agaveacris, the other one, not sure what species yet. Lechuguilla is pretty well distributed, but those guys are especially poor at dispersal because that garden, there was another patch of the agave 200 meters away, and there wasn't any on that one, so they don't seem to go very far. And those guys also have the same thing with the males kind of guarding at the end of the fronds. So there is some kind of guarding going on with them. And kind of big picture thing, again, a lot of this is still really preliminarily, and I haven't really thought 100% through what the implications are, but in general, plants in the Southwest that are agaves and yuccas aren't seasonal compared to a lot of the other plants that you would run into in the Davis Mountains. I've been doing work with Michael Schwartz on the oaks over there in the mountains, and they definitely have periods of time, like right now, where the oak panicles are out, where you get a whole suite of insects just on that during that brief period of time. Part of it has to do with rain. There's some other reasons, but comparatively, yuccas and agaves really don't have any seasonality. I mean, yuccas maybe bloom once every 1 or 3 years, and the Haltocatoma don't feed on the blooms. It's just leaves. And then yuccas bloom every 10 to 30 years, which causes their death. But again, like, they don't have the same like ephemerality that you would have for young oak leaves, where you have deciduousness and flowers. So the fact that there's this relatively constant resource for them, maybe it just provides an opportune environment where you get these kind of weird sexual behaviors. And again, maybe they're not that weird. I don't know how many, unfortunately, I'm kind of like most taxonomists. I don't really watch what they do. I just want to kill them and put them on a pin. Maybe these aren't that unusual behaviors. It's just we don't take the time to look. So that's kind of what ended up happening with the trip. Both of my hypotheses were negated. Still trying to understand what that means and the implications. And I'm continuing to work with Nick to try and figure out again kind of what's going on with the genitalia part. Same with Michael Schwartz, again, such weird female genitalia. And then Tom is helping with, he's revising Haltocatoma, so trying to get names on what's going on with this species, and the yucca host would be helpful. I just want to thank Kaylee French and Greg Crow, who always let me crash at the MacGyver Center whenever I head out there. The Chihuahua Desert Conservation Center, which is where I got some of the Lechuguilla samples, and also the Tree Bug Tuesday crew, because it's always fun to talk about bugs, even if you impale yourself with thorns as part of the story. Yeah, so that's it. It's brief, but yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Applause.
How do I stop sharing? Okay.